All right. Hello, everybody. I wanted to go kind of re-give my talk that I gave at Steamfest and do a quick recording of it. This is entitled Steem-Engine for Blocktrapenuers. I'm Agrode. My legal name is Blair Reich. I'm a PhD chemist turned into blockchain advocate, consensus witness, business person, and card slinger, and I don't know, a whole bunch of things. Anyways, let's go through this and try to walk you through, the big questions. And those are, why would we do any of this stuff on blockchain? Why would we choose Steem in particular? And then even if we did choose Steem, why are we doing any of this stuff with Steem-Engine? So those are the three big questions that I think that businesses have to ask, and I'm here to answer those. So my first thought is that any application that you're building that doesn't currently involve a blockchain is already obsolete. That the amount of data that you are able to access because of blockchains, because you have this open public repository, is unparalleled. And ultimately, as more users understand that, they are going to keep wanting more and more of those kinds of features of openness and transparency so that they have the same amount of information as like the experts in the field. So first off, what is a blockchain? Lots of people start talking about distributed ledger systems, but nobody has any familiarity with distributed ledgers. So I always feel like that's a bad place to start. If I wanted to go create just a really simple explanation, it's this. A blockchain is a public, open source, transparent database. Everybody knows what a database is. You can't live in the information age without understanding that. And so public, open source, and transparent, okay, it's a database that I can see into. That's about it. So what is it about these kinds of databases that make it so useful? So one of my favorite aspects is that we use keys instead of passwords. So, if you any place that just gives you a password, it turns out you don't actually own that digital asset. They could take it away, and this includes your bank. It includes games. It includes any kind of application that you're running. That as long as it's fully determined by a password, you don't actually control the access. Only keys grant you that kind of ownership. And blockchains are all about keys. So keys are obnoxious because, if you lose them, you lose your entire access, and there's no central authority that you can then beg for your keys back. So they're slightly dangerous. But on the flip side, you're not trusting some other entity to hold your assets for you and always be benevolent and let you access them. Instead, with keys, you're the person in control. So these things are transparent too. So I think one of my favorite aspects of blockchain is that literally anything that I want to go query, I can go find. Now I'm not a dev, so I have to go trust in the ecosystem of these projects to go find good search tools. But if you wanted to run a private query into a private database, you might not have access. You might not be able to go ask how many widgets are in location Y. But with a public blockchain, you can ask any question and find any data that's on that database. So you have unparalleled access to information. Blockchains are highly redundant. So you're not trusting just one organization or one central entity to go maintain this. You're actually trusting lots of people with lots of different motives and lots of different incentives all over the world to go keep redundant copies of the blockchain up and running and true in terms that the data that they're reporting lines up with everybody else. So it's somewhere around like having all these people with different interests and different reasons to participate that helps make it such a strong and robust sort of ecosystem of trust. And lastly, it's open source. So I know that when I'm looking at it, I have as much data as humanly possible, right? I know that it's not trying to steal from me. I know that it's not doing anything nefarious or nefarious. Like I know I have all the information about what the program is going to do. So I don't have to trust marketing materials of it will deliver X and Y time. I can go look at the actual code or pay people to go look at the code and tell me, does it do what it says it's going to do? And I can have way more trust in that because it's completely open source. So, so that's generally what a blockchain is, but that's probably still hard to understand. So this is currently my favorite image out there of what a blockchain is. Each one of these is a different block. And as you go through, you'll notice that there's all kinds of data stored in that block. And on the Steem blockchain, that could be votes, that could be follows, that could be posts, that could be Steem Monsters battles, it could be new D2 videos. Literally any data that lives on the chain will go into each one of those blocks, and they're all tied to each other cryptographically so that you can't just hack the chain. But that I think is actually a pretty decent representation of what is a blockchain. Just lots of data going into all these different blocks, and that's how it's stored. And what this can allow is a series of apps, and that these apps, instead of having their own private backend, and actually they might still have their private backend, but they can use this public backend that I want to know, did this person at that time issue that transaction? And for how much? And I can always look in this public repository. And maybe to make things faster for my app, I might end up copying just some of a subset of those into just my application. But ultimately what we're doing is we're building the back end. So to help explain that a little bit, there are two parts to a website. You have a front end, which is the stuff that you see when you type in a URL. Everything when you go to google.com or you go to CNN or wherever, you're going to go see that screen, and everything that you're seeing in that display is the front end. But the front end is only visible because of all the data that lives on the back end. So the backend is a server that hosts all the content that appears and the database that stores all the info. And that could be the images, it could be data about products, it could be a list of users. It's all anything that any information that you're storing, it lives on the backend, and whenever you're presenting it, it goes to the front end. So one of the businesses that I run is this thing called Splinterlands, and here on the left you can see here's our front end for the market, and each one of these cards is a different NFT, and in order to generate that, we have to go pull images, prices, IDs, all of that stuff from the back end. So hopefully that gives you a sense of how those two things are interconnected. Now, when we're trying to do, so let me go back for just a second. This is a market screen, and the whole goal of this market, and one of the real appeals of combining blockchain with gaming, is that you own your digital assets. And so if I was in a shop, like an RPG shop or a hobby store, and I have a card and somebody has money, I could look at them and say, "Good day, sir. I have this money. I would like to purchase that card." And the two of us, while physically in person, could exchange good for cash, and we'd both walk away pretty happy from that transaction. The challenge, though, is that when we're trying to go do trading online, it gets kind of tricky. So, if it's physical trading, it's tricky because I can't trade around the clock. I have to be physically located somewhere, so I can't be eating lunch or I can't be on a date. Like, I have to be sitting there with the person. Online makes it so that, I can remove the barriers of physical locality, but now I really have this strong issue of trust. How do I know when I hit buy, sell, or trade that the card that I want or the digital asset that I want will come to me and the money will go to them, and that will happen? How do I make sure, or how can I ensure that happens? And so, for example, this is a Black Lotus, and I've seen these Black Lotuses. It's a card for Magic the Gathering. It's one of the first cards that they printed, and it's a really powerful card, and people really like them. And it's from one of the original sets, and currently I think these things go for $80,000. Now, if you own that physical card and you had a friend that wanted to go play that card in tournaments, would you lend it to them? I mean, it's dangerous to go lend this card. Will they return it to you? Will it come back unmolested? Will it get lost? There's all kinds of those questions around it that make me personally say I would not lend it, even to somebody that I like or love, but certainly not somebody that is a stranger far away, because there's no trust I'm going to get that money back for the rental. Or, I wouldn't like mail it to someone with the hope that they send me cash later. And so really all of this stuff is around trust. And really, can I trust that the internet will, and people on the internet will act honorably? And the reality is there's a whole lot of scammers out in this world. The economic situation for everybody is so perilous these days, and that it's so divided between the wealthy haves and lots of have-nots that, people are pretty desperate. And so even that like $100 or $200 card that they scam, well, maybe that's like their mortgage payment or how they're going to go get babysitting or daycare or just food. So I find trust on the internet to be exceptionally difficult. And so without the sort of blockchain world and without technology, how do we ensure trust? And usually it's one of two ways, which all come down to the same way of that, there's laws, right? We're going to go have courtrooms and we're going to go sue each other. And this way we're going to enforce that. Or maybe you're going to go borrow money or work with people that are loan sharks and, businessmen and whatever. But ultimately, it's really going to come down to some form of force, that there's going to be sheriffs, SWAT teams, IRS agents, police, or whatever, somebody with a gun or a club that's going to enforce these contracts. And I'd like to think that we as humans can do better than that, that there are other options that are out there. And again, all of this is really around like, how do I just want to trade a card. I just want my card to go to that guy and them to give me some money. Why is this so challenging? This is all I'm trying to do. And again, what we're really trying to do is have a digital handshake that we can trust, that we can ensure is going to execute. Not the simplest is just a transaction, but it's really any kind of if-then statement, any kind of contract, any way that I want to interact with another person. I'm really trying to figure out, how do I make sure that when I give this money, I get a good or service in return? So we're kind of left with two options, and the two options are, okay, somebody has to go build the system to do this, and I can either trust a big corporate board or some government agency to go build that, or I can go trust a whole bunch of yahoos on the internet, and we'll see how these two options work. So I think most obvious to people is, let's go with this corporate board, or let's go with some government agency. They're going to create something that's going to be safe for us to use. But what we've seen over and over again is that corporations and government agencies can't really be trusted for these sorts of things. So I'm going to go through a couple examples here. So the top left, Liberate Hong Kong. Blizzard goes berserk on gamer for Hong Kong support, pulls cash prize. So there's Blitzchung, he's saying liberate Hong Kong, and Blizzard he bans him from tournaments, takes all of his cash prizes, and just literally goes berserk. All right, so the next slide here we have the Bank of Cyprus, and I don't know if you guys know this, but back, I think it was 2013, the Bank of Cyprus just went and took money out of everybody's bank accounts. So you deposit that, and you think, oh, I can go trust this. This is a bank; they won't take my money. But again, you have passwords, you don't have keys, so they just took it. All right, so going a bit towards this is a different type of transaction, but you want to go post. I want my words to go onto your social media platform. But Facebook doesn't like what you say, so you're blocked. And they're the ones that actually have the keys. You just have passwords, and that means that they can turn off your access. Here's Alex Jones. Now, you might not like Alex Jones. You might think he's an idiot. But hopefully, if you're an American, you think, well, he might be an idiot, but I really think he still has the right to say things in the public square. I could just tune him out. I don't have to listen, but, should we really be silencing people? That sounds un-American. But that's what Twitter did. Twitter just sort of banned him. And then there's a couple examples of gaming here where the CSGO player gets banned from Twitch, and then Wizards of the Coast bans a Magic player. And, from gaming to media to banks, I would just say that you can't trust one centralized organization to go to ensure your ability to transact or speak when they're the ones that run these essentially private networks that they give you access to. And so instead of trusting people and instead of trusting organizations, I would argue it is better to trust code is law. That we're just going to trust the code because we can see the code. The code is open source. So we can ask the code, will it do what I want it to do? Will it let me post? Will it let me take my money out? Will it let me trade my cards? Is there any way for some central authority to go ban me or block me? And if the answer is no, then I can go trust in that code and let the code be the judge of what transactions and what speech will be allowed rather than just trusting that to a government agency or a private corporation. And so the way that this is done routinely, the largest repository of code is a website called GitHub. And for a relatively small fee and sometimes even free, you can go put all of the source code of your project onto GitHub and everybody can go look and verify, does the code do what you say it does? So now the question really becomes, typically one of the powerful ways that these private corporations and government agencies, if your website starts getting big, you really need a lot of servers and data processing to allow enough transactions to happen in a meaningful amount of time or a responsive amount of time. And so one of the reasons why we have historically relied on these private corporations is because they're the only people that had the equipment that was strong enough to go run these networks. But as it turns out, as technology has gotten more powerful and costs have come down, running these networks is not really that bad. You can actually go work with a distributed system where lots of people running lots of servers all around the world, all with their different reason for doing so, can actually come up with enough computing power to make these things run pretty quickly. So ultimately, I think it comes down to it still comes down to trust. And the question is, am I going to trust this blockchain or this private individual or this private company or this government? Or am I going to trust all of these individuals with all their differing needs and wants to go provide that sort of trust? And to me, I haven't seen blockchains like block transactions, but I've seen that over and over again from private companies and governments. So I want my transactions to go through, and there are some other advantages, but mostly it's about this trust piece. So I want to go do this on a blockchain. So the question is, which blockchain? And I would present to you that there's three. These aren't the three blockchains, but these are three different approaches to how you can go solve contract problems. So we have Bitcoin on the left, we have Ethereum in the middle, and Steem on the right. So a contract is really just an if-then plan or an if-then statement, and it could even be a when-then. But if I send money to an account, then this card will be transferred. If I hit post for these words, then they will show up on this social media. If I run this miner, then I will get blocks if I'm the person that solves it. These are all if-then statements, and that's what a contract is. If this happens, then that will occur. So the question is, how are we going to run these contracts? And so I'd argue that there's three different ways to do this. So you have the base layer, and so the blockchain completes the trade or the transaction. So the actual blockchain itself does that. Your second option is a smart contract. And so that is a contract that runs on top of the chain, will complete the trade or the transaction. And then the third option is a layer 2. So the details are signed by the keys. They're put on, like the details are put onto the chain, but then there's a separate layer 2 node that completes the transaction or the action. So these are 3 different ways: base layer, smart contract, and layer 2. So here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is known for its mining, and I'm going to argue that mining is in and of itself a base contract, smart contract, right? So here, the first layer, it's consisting of a couple parts here. So you got the blocks, you have software that processes the blocks, and it has a subset of all possible transactions that live on the base layer. But what it's doing is that when I'm mining, it's running that simple contract of if I solve that the hash, or if I'm able to go complete the block, or I'm the one that figures it out, then I'm going to be rewarded with the tokens. And so that's a smart contract, and every single Bitcoin node or every single Bitcoin miner that's on the planet is running that same contract. That's at the base level. Okay, so the second level of this is that we have something like Ethereum, and Ethereum is a smart contract platform. It's not the only smart contract platform, but it's certainly it's one of the best well-known that's there. And out of the smart contract platforms, one of the first gaming applications just ever on a blockchain, but just one of the best known ones is CryptoKitties. So what does a smart contract do? A smart contract is a computer protocol intended to digitally facilitate, verify, or enforce the negotiation or performance of a contract. So in this case, the contract has a minting function where we're going to create new CryptoKitties under certain conditions and limitations. And then another one is that we can move or transfer those kitties back and forth between people that are collecting them. And so this is not built at the base layer. This is a contract that lives on top of the base layer. But one of my contentions with this is that I think it's a really complicated way to try to get at trust. Because what you want is you want to make sure that these transactions happen, but you are asking every single computer on the network to go verify your transaction, which is really only pertinent to your game. It's like asking every single computer on the internet to go verify your one Google search. Like that, it seems like overkill to me. And that's why I have this Rube Goldberg device in there, because I think it just demonstrates that it's a little bit overcomplicated. And one problem with it is that imagine that you have, imagine CryptoKitties says, all right, you had all these Gen 0, but we've had a change in ownership. We're no longer going to honor the Gen 0s on our site. We're going to go set up a new set of Gen 0s. Nothing has changed from the smart contract level, but everything would change from a financial level and how people interact with these things. So you don't actually get all the security that you're hoping for, but it certainly does seem to cause quite a bit of need for computing power. So I'm not a super big fan of the smart contracts, and I know that might be a little bit of heresy, or maybe a better way to say it is a smart contract that everybody on the chain uses should actually be run either as a smart contract or a base layer solution. But if only like a handful of people are doing it, I'm not sure that I need the entire network to run that for me. So I think that's a little bit of blockchain heresy, but that's where I come up with. And not only that, but your smart contract developers, these are expensive people. It costs a lot of money to hire people that are familiar with smart contracts. So I think of them as unicorns. Especially during bull markets, these people can be exceptionally difficult to find, hard to hire, and I don't know. It just makes programming so much slower because you're doing everything in smart contracts in like specific languages rather than what the whole internet knows how to work with. So that gets me down to the businesses that I run, which are Steem-Engine and Splinterlands. And this talk is mostly about Steem-Engine, but it'll have a couple points about Splinterlands in it. So the way that we do things is as a layer 2. And what this means is that we treat the Steem blockchain kind of like a post-it board where we're able to go put custom JSONs, which are in this case when I'm considering these little sticky notes, into blocks. And those might say transfer a Lord of Darkness from Agrode to Yabamet, or here's a put this special transaction in there, move these tokens to this person, create this NFT. The blockchain itself doesn't know anything about what they're saying. It's just words. It's not like code to the blockchain, but we're going to rely on a separate node to interpret it. So what this gives us is the ability to use Steem to verify keys and verify data, so that there's consensus around, did that person actually issue that transaction? But I don't have to ask the entire Steem network to help me transfer a card. I'm just asking them to verify the data. So that's what Steem is really good at. And what these blockchain systems are really good at is helping us trust and also verify that data is accurate. And the way that we do that is with block explorers. So, we can go into the various blocks and look at that, what was posted at that second, and ask, was that contract sent? Did you buy that thing? Did you send that? What block was it in? What time did that happen? All of that information gets transmitted through the blocks. So what about Steem in particular? Why that? The first question anybody ever asked me is, why did you build on Steem? Well, I actually think Steem is one of the best places in crypto for blockchains. First off, the transactions are fast and free. We use a bandwidth system here so that I don't have to pay a small transaction fee. And that, like, when the gamers are running Splinterlands, they might make 100 transactions in an hour. And so imagine having to go pay a transaction fee with every single battle. It gets tiresome. So having these transactions be fast and free makes for a really good user experience. User-friendly account names. I mean, that sounds kind of silly, but if you play me in Splinterlands and you kick my butt, you beat Agrode, because Agrode is the address. That's the name. If you're on other blockchains, you beat a wallet address. You beat E1629B59, and that's just not nearly as fun. And then I also think the web development that we do here, so because it's all custom JSON, we can do development in Python and JavaScript. These are languages that are known everywhere. They've been around for 20, 30 plus years, and it's ubiquitous. Like anybody building a web application knows how to use these. They have to go figure out some Steem libraries to get started, but it just works the same way that everything else does on the internet, which just makes it really easy to go build. And the unsung hero of this is actually, I didn't put it into the slides, but also the community. I mean, there's thousands of people that interact with our game, thousands of people that interact with Steemit.com and all the various blogging aspects and social media aspects. And so being able to go tap into that has really helped us expand, because you don't just need a great product, you need people using it. And Steem has actually successfully gathered people and projects. So in terms of costs for businesses on Steem, you're going to have your website and a database, web developers, artists, content creation. You're going to have to run nodes. And all of these things are so much less expensive on Steem. We can run nodes that operate our business for $50 a month, which is just, it's nearly nothing. It's so inexpensive. But the artists and the content creation, I mean, Steem is really good at attracting musicians, artists, bloggers. And so as we have to go write content for our game, we just tap into the ecosystem that's here and find all the people that we need. So I find that the costs have been very much contained. So finally, that gets us to Steem-Engine. So why would we do any of this stuff with Steem-Engine in particular? So what does Steem-Engine do? It has two primary functions. It's here to help you create tokens and engage in some type of trading for those tokens, and then build a community. Those are the two things that we do. So token creation is relatively simple. You just fill out this form. It's relatively inexpensive. Like a brand new token costs $13. That's one of the cheapest out of any of these platforms. And then you can build a community. And so we do this thing through what's called Scottbot. So what Steem figured out is that if everybody fights over a common reward pool, then there can be some desire to have that reward pool. And so we mimicked a lot of the things that Steem was doing, but we enabled it for your own custom token and then your own custom community. So this is an example. This is the palnet.io community. And you can see that the posts are paying out in PAL. So we created PAL as a coin, which stands for Peace, Abundance, and Liberty. And then we forked steemit.com so that we could create palnet.io in sort of like a 1950s era phone operator. We unplugged the display for Steem and we plugged in the display for PAL. So now you can see how when you make these posts, you're earning PAL. And so that means that my community, which is bound together by some common interests, is now also bound together financially. There's another example of this. This is SteamCoinPan. This is a Korean server. And they did the same thing. So they forked steemit.com. They built their own token on the exchange, and now they distribute that token through the exchange. And if you look at the different parts of the site, you can see on the right here that they have some token swaps that are going up. So now we're getting some individual sites that have different features that match what the users want, and you can really start getting into customization for the different communities. So now we can do the token creation and we can go do community creation. And so, we have one on our own for Splinterlands called Splinter Talk, where people that want to go talk about the game and get paid for talking about the game, they'll get micropayments for these sorts of things. And that encourages lots of social media to be built about our game. So what will it do? So the next, we're leveling up and relatively quickly. So the next couple features, we're launching a better trading operation, or the new version of the DEX. That should be coming out in about a week or so. We're going to have NFT creation. We've actually successfully had our first NFTs created on chain through the testnet. So I imagine that sometime in December, anybody can come to Steem-Engine and create their own NFT. We're working on opt-in KYC and accreditation. So what that will let us do is act like money transmitters, which allow us to go transact in US dollars for these tokens. It can help us do security launches, security trading, and finally, we want the website to be a little bit more robust and to have a little bit more points of contact, particularly around the API. So we're building in a peer-to-peer layer to encourage more people to host servers for Steem-Engine. So this is what the new DEX is going to look like. So hopefully you can see, just looks a little bit more modern than what we've been doing. You can see the sell orders, the buy orders. There's candlesticks that are here. I think we're cleaning up the dates below it. It's pretty simple to buy, to sell, for your deposits, your withdrawals. So all this stuff is coming along, and hopefully you think that looks relatively nice, because we spent a bunch of time trying to make this look more modern. So that's the new DEX. Now, one of the next things that we're doing are NFTs. And not everybody knows what an NFT is, but it's a non-fungible token. So here's Splinterlands. Splinterlands is a game that relies on NFTs. So if you have to ask which one, then it's going to be an NFT. So if I tell you, I'm going to send you a Bitcoin, you'll be like, cool. You don't have to ask me which one. If I say, I'm going to send you a monster, you'll say, which one? And then I tell you ruler of the seas. And you might even ask me again, oh, which one? What level is it? Who owned it first? Like, is it currently leased? Like, there's a bunch of different questions you can ask about those individual cars. What is its unique ID? That's what makes something a non-fungible token. They're not all the same. Each one is a distinct unit. So this is our development schedule so far, and this is actually a week old. So all of milestone 1 is done, and it's now functioning on the testnet. So now we're getting into like the market contract side of things, so that not only will you be able to issue tokens, but you'll be able to trade these non-fungible tokens. And that's happening now, both on the website and on the back end to go facilitate that. So here's some of the first test NFTs that were done. These were sort of done on the private server, but now they're working on the test server, and soon they'll be working on the live production server. I expect that to happen in December. There will be fees. There's actually 4 different fees that will go along with this. There'll be a token creation fee, a issuance fee. If you want to add properties, so not just have the token, but you want the token to have specific properties in our database, not your own, we'll allow that, and we'll charge a fee for each different property that you want to store with us. And then if you want to be able to delegate these tokens, there'll be a separate fee for that. So, and one of the things that we're planning on doing is for the issuance fee, we're planning to allow different tribe token owners, the people that own their own website with their own token, we're going to let them pay for the NFT issuance by sending or burning the various tribe tokens. And that might seem a little weird for us to do, but we want all the people building businesses with us to be successful. And if every single tribe is now incentivized to help get NFTs issued and to encourage their community members to issue NFTs, I think that will go a long way to supporting the price, which will support the users. And there's a lot of good that comes of this. It basically incentivizes the thousands of accounts that own tokens to go get this service up and running, especially for their own particular token. So I'm excited for that. Last step, what we're doing is we're working on our KYC. So again, this is going to be opt-in KYC, but if you want to go trade securities, you are going to have to provide some data, both on who you are, some information about yourself. You'll have to supply some passport photos, but by doing that, you'll be able to go participate in the security token side of things, or the money transmitting side of things, a la like sending and trading for US dollars. And the sort of like final spot where we're hoping to take that is building a launch platform, kind of like Kickstarter. Kickstarter is more for projects and for products, and this is going to be more for security tokens. But hopefully we'll have for you soon into 2020 the ability to sort of set up a page to describe what it is that your business will do, why you're raising money, what the function is, and actually raise money on the site from accredited, non-accredited, but all KYC'd investors. So that's where we're taking this product. And of course, all of it can be verified on the chain. You can see all the data, and it'll be more transparent than anything that you might have worked with in the fiat space. But that's it's all going to be backed by the blockchain, all backed by your private keys that you own and operate. And hopefully that gives you a sense of what are the advantages or disadvantages of using a blockchain. Why would we choose the Steem blockchain in particular? And why would we use a service like Steem-Engine? And how does that fit in with games and tools like Splinterlands? So hopefully that helps you understand. Thank you for your time. Thanks for checking this out. And, hopefully you'll be with us soon building your NFTs on Steem-Engine. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.